Okay, the only thing is, okay, let's just see here. Okay, quit. Okay, all right. So yes, I've been asked to present this. So it's use of peer review to facilitate critical philosophical thinking in undergraduate psychiatric nursing students. And then looking at the objectives. Okay, upon conclusion of this particular presentation, I would hope that you're able to situate my course that I've been we'll be talking about within the university's undergraduate degree program in the psychiatric nursing program, and then outline how peer review is useful in undergraduate psychiatric nursing education. Describe a typical rubric used in peer review, and outline what students have to say about the use of peer review. Explain lessons that are learned, I have learned, as well as my students have learned from the use of this peer-to-peer review software program. So the situation or the background is I teach in a Bachelor of Science in Psychiatric Nursing degree program at Brandon University in Manitoba, Canada. Now, psychiatric nursing practice in Canada is different in the 4 Western provinces, meaning BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and my home base, Manitoba, than anywhere else in the world. So we have entry to practice at the psychiatric nursing baccalaureate degree level, rather than post-basic specialty. So those of you who are around for a while, or maybe those of you who are new, are quite familiar with the fact that psychiatric mental health nursing in other parts of the world usually is a specialized practice post-basic. So after your BSEN or BN program, you take the specialty, or maybe you actually work within the environments without those specialties. And so in the the eastern provinces of Canada, it's very much that. And then in the 4 Western provinces, it's entry to practice is at the psychiatric nursing education level. And it used to be the diploma program, and I taught in that diploma program, and now I'm teaching in the undergraduate program, and I'm also teaching in another program that is very unique. It's a graduate of psychiatric nursing program, and it's the only one of its kind in Canada. So there are many other programs at the undergraduate level within the 4 Western provinces. So don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that we're the only fish in town, but the bottom line is we are the only fish in town when it comes to the graduate degree program, which I also teach. And I use Critic, the platform I'm going to talk about, with that program as well. Anyway, so this particular course I'm talking about is a required course. Students do not have the option to actually not take it or to choose to take it. It's in philosophical perspectives. I've been teaching it for a few years now, and then I've used peer review for a number of years as well. And I've conducted a little bit of research along the way as well. So what is Critic? Well, it's a peer-to-peer learning and evaluation platform. It uses the toting, or its claim to fame is that it uses Bloom's taxonomy of learning objectives, and so it's very measurable. So those of you who were talking about competency-based learning, and yeah, we don't want to, but at the end of the day, there is some merit to actually knowing concretely, and I've been around for a while, and I know what CBL, the pros and cons of using competency-based learning are. But for this particular course, the use of Critic, it truly needs to be measurable and clearly defined. And it is actually the use of technology. So those of you who are actually saying, we don't want to have the use of there's a balance, right? So I am very grateful for this particular piece of technology, and I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, it's the use of this particular platform uses a very measurable rubric within which the students actually know the criteria within which they're going to be evaluating their peers. And so then there's 3 stages in each assignment. There's a stage 1, which is a create. The students are required to follow the instructions, adhere to the criteria that are outlined in the corresponding rubric. And sometimes I use a different rubric for every assignment. Sometimes it's the same, but sometimes I have to tweak it based on the nuances of the assignment. Stage 2, that's where students are actually evaluating their peers' assignments. And we're not talking about just one assignment that they're assigned. The beauty of this is they're assigned 2 or 3 assignments. So, and I'll get into why that is beautiful in a bit, but stage 3 involves feedback, and that's a very shorter time frame where the students are actually providing feedback on the evaluations that they've received from their peers. You know, how meaningful, how critically did their evaluators appraise their assignment, and how useful is that feedback? And in order to have this this evaluation phase being meaningful, I instruct my students to ensure that if they assign grades less than full marks, then they absolutely must back it up with rationale as to why it was they actually reduced the mark, and very explicit rationale, so that the student can take that feedback into creation of their, for consideration in the creation of their next assignment. Because I usually have 2 or 3 assignments throughout the course, so they actually can track the students' improvements. Some of them actually are very good right off the bat in terms of their writing, but some of them are abysmal. At the 4th year level, they're abysmal when it comes to writing. So anyway, just trying to tighten that up before they graduate, and that's my aim. And so then the grading for a particular assignment involves all 3 scores. So the creation, evaluate, and feedback scores are all, it's amazing. There's a calibration that Critic does behind the scenes, but it's done automatically, which I'm also grateful for. So this set assignments that my students are doing this term right now are 2. There's just 2 assignments. And they, first of all, they're doing the assignment right now. They must differentiate between ontology and epistemology by identifying the meaning of both, as well as explaining the significance that each has to philosophy and nursing knowledge. In so doing, determine which ways of knowing is or are most relevant to your psychiatric nursing practice. And then the second assignment, which will be starting in a couple of weeks, is explain ethics as a theory and a practice. Outline how psychiatric nurses demonstrate ethical competency in practice. Identify the challenges associated with implementing an ethical practice, and substantiate your claims with supporting rationale. This is an example of the rubric that I use, and I'm sorry that you maybe have a hard time seeing it, but this was the best I could do to import into PowerPoint. So the first criteria they must meet is the word fulfillment. So for this assignment, they're doing between 650 and 750 words. And so then it's very explicit. To receive a mark of 0, the assignment exceeds the work requirement by 30 or more words, or assignment does not meet the word count requirement and falls short by 30. So it's very stringent. But you know what, students, they, you know, when they find out that this is going to be a 2-point mark, you know, 2-mark assigned criteria, then they work at fulfilling it. And so then, of course, the level 4, which is a 2-mark fulfillment, is that the word count meets the criteria. Introduction and conclusion, neither introduction nor summary conclusion are noted, and then the full marks are introduction is stated early, gives reader direction, and sets the scene for the peer evaluator. Summary, conclusion is thoughtful, relevant, and critically presented, and then it goes down by 0.5 marks. Topic, understanding. I'm going to start at the top now. A thorough understanding of the topic is noted. Fundamental issues are addressed in depth, and then it goes down sequentially down to 0. An understanding of the topic is not noted. Fundamental issues are not addressed. The next criteria is grammar, spelling, and syntax. So to get full marks, there must be no errors in grammar, spelling, and or syntax. Specifically, none of the following are noted. Incomplete sentences cannot be included. Subject-verb disagreement should not be observed. Improper use of conjunctions, prepositions, and then colloquialism, absolutely not. So 3 marks is assigned if the assignment fulfills that. And then down here, more than 7 errors in grammar, spelling, and then more than 7 errors in the following are noted. So it again has to be very explicit to be measurable. Sources, I I am actually insisting that my students use primary sources, and I provided them with 50 odd articles. And I actually go back to Fawcett's original article in 1978 when she was looking at the meta-paradigm concepts, and then further work with that, and then Patricia Banner's ways of knowing, or from novice to an expert, and then looking at all of the different gurus or seminal works. They're all posted on my Moodle site, which is the other platform that I use, the learning management system that I use. And then students do not have to go looking for reference material. They can look through the reference material, review it, find out if anything resonates for themselves, and then they actually use those particular reference. They can certainly bring reference material to the class as well, meaning that they must email it to me while the creation stage is going on. So, and usually there's about a week or 9 days assigned to the creation phase, which is for them to get their assignment done and get them to post it on the Critic platform. And then the evaluation phase involves 5, 6, 7 days, sometimes depending on our timetabling, to actually get that done, and then 2 or 3 days for the third stage. Anyway, bottom line is the APA, the sources are needing to be primary, no secondary sources, no books, no edited books, no scoping reviews. I want them to go to the original source to actually look at those seminal works, and then look at the publications that have actually been done sooner, like recently, so it's not just about reading the publications 5 years out, because some of them, well, some of them are good, but I want them to go back to the original scholars. Okay, so that's for the sources. Use of primary literature citations are noted. 5 or more different sources are cited for 2 marks. And then if they use secondary sources and no primary sources, then they get a big 0. APA format, I'm stickler on APA format. I want them by the time they graduate from our program to know this inside and out. And some of them, by gosh, by golly, don't know it that well when they get to my class. I actually do a face-to-face class where I review APA with them. So this is not rocket science for them, but they should actually know it. And if they don't, and I still have to go back to the APA manual. That's not a crisis if you have to. It's not a crime. So APA manual adheres to APA format style with no errors. Specifically, all in-text citations are correct. All reference citations are included in the reference list, and all references are written in correct APA format for 2 marks. And then it goes down. References, I've included that one just this go around because I want the evaluators to be able to find the reference that they're talking about easily. And I'm finding that use of DOI is not all it's cracked up to be. Sometimes you clicked on the DOI, it takes you to the actual publication's website, and then you have to pay for the darn thing. No, so they can include the DOI, absolutely, as part of their APA, but they need to bracket at the end of their reference where it is on Moodle that this particular reference material is located. And I make it very clear. It's usually at the very bottom. There's folders 1 through 20. So they must identify so that their evaluator is not having a painful time trying to find the reference that they're using or the article, and then to actually look at whether or not there's plagiarism, whether or not the formatting is, whether or not they've actually paraphrased, I mean, I know that sounds big, but you know what? Students are doing it and they're not harping too much about it. A couple of them have said, you mean you want us to do this and you want us to, and we're doing your job. And I'm like, okay. And then, but yeah, so those are not new comments. So yeah. And so then I did in conjunction with Critic, we did some surveys. And so, and my classes, this particular class is large, but I didn't have very many responses, so I wasn't very thrilled about that. But anyway, so it just gives me some insight. This is more of a piloting of the course, this platform for the course, and I'm going to be looking at doing a more formal study this go around and going through the ethics committee and getting that done. But anyway, so overall participating in activities help me learn the materials better. Half the class said yes, they strongly agreed, and then 16.7 agreed, and then the rest no. I learned by reading through evaluations comments that I received from my peers. 50% said strongly agree, and 16.7 said they agreed. I learned by evaluating my peer submissions. This was really more broken up here, but still we got 66% agreeing. I became a better evaluator after a few activities, so 83% agree. During the final stage of critic, how do you usually review the evaluations you receive? And then so they briefly scan them, 50%, and no, sorry, no, here was, sorry, I read each one. Oh, geez, Kim, go back. I read each one, 16.7. I read each one very, very carefully, and then I read them carefully and take. So these. So what is that? That's 40 some odd % there. And half say I read them carefully and take notes. Okay. The grades my peers gave me were, nobody said slightly higher. 33% said slightly higher than what I would have assigned. And 50% said close to, and then 16.7 says significantly lower. Okay. The grades I gave my peers were 50% said close to, and 50% said slightly higher than what I would give them. And then what are the optimal number of peer evaluations to give and receive for each submission? 50% said 3, so they don't want to have any more than 3 evaluations. And then 4 said no more than 2, and 5 said 1. Well, the way the peer review is set up, it's going to be more than 1 evaluation that students are doing. And then looking at what do you like most about peer-to-peer evaluation? Being able to evaluate others helped me learn. Receiving feedback from more than 1 person was helpful in the help chat, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The anonymity, receiving assigned marks earlier than they normally do when an instructor is actually marking them. Time frame for creation evaluation. So the 6 people were happy with that. What didn't you like about peer-to-peer? Subjectivity was what they said, okay, or 1 student said. If you have any additional comments, there was no comments. And then lessons learned. Okay, so there's the support provided by Critic, I can't say enough, was excellent. They have a live chat, and response time is usually less than 2 minutes. And things are done very efficiently and effectively. Quick and reliable, efficient. They walked me through everything to start to actually mount the program. I was very grateful for that, and the support that I received remained to the end. And then they also are very clear and repeatedly saying, if students have, and if you students, if you have issues, not to contact the instructor, because there's not much I can do as an instructor about the platform use. I certainly can help with the content and whatnot, but the platform itself, it absolutely needs to be the Critic IT. They're helping students resolve any issues that they might have. The peer marking takes the blame off the instructor. And those of you who are educators, you are well aware of the blame that we receive. Sometimes the evaluations, our course end evaluations, take us down to our knees. And I've had many of them take me, and it just takes a couple of comments. But so the peer marking, it actually takes less of that. It lightens that load a little bit. Intentional, it makes the visibility of us is I think highlighted. We're in the spotlight. We can actually do spot checking more easily, and I'll get into that in a minute. Strongest students sometimes got upset about the inability to score full marks, because the way the platform is set up, they might get 98%, they might get 97% because of the 3 scores, but very seldom 100%. A good rubric, including appropriate weighting of components, is absolutely crucial. You know, the measurability comes into play here. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And although I spewed it off to my students that it was anonymous, this was 3 years ago when I first started using Critic. anonymity cannot be guaranteed the way it's set up. And the critic IT have looked at this time and time again, but when I used it 3 years ago, when I started using critic, I was contacted by several students after the first assignment was well in play. You know, they had 3 weeks to do the first assignment, and they said, Professor Ryan, we can tell whose assignments were being assigned to evaluate. And I'm like, what? You know, I was told that this is all, well, lo and behold, because students are more savvy than I am, they can actually go in and see the word perfect or word properties of the file if they just upload the file to critic. So then I got a hold of critic, very steamed, because I had said to my students that this anonymity is very huge for me as well as students, for students not to know who's marking their assignments and who the assignments are that they're receiving. So I contacted the critic, and they came back to me saying, you know what, it's not a critic issue. It's the fact that they're using word perfect or word or whatever. But a way around that is to get them to copy and paste their assignment directly into critic. And that, of course, came with its own problems because formatting is not saved. So then I pitched the formatting for APA out the window. I said, you know what, as long as you get your assignment copied and pasted, and students know where your paragraph starts and ends, and then leave a couple of space breaks, and then your references, you don't need to be doing hanging indents or anything like that. We'll be happy with that. So we've adjusted it that way. Some students assign full marks without due diligence. Christina, am I out of time?
You have 4 minutes left.
Okay, so some students assign full marks without due. So now we have students who actually will just assign full marks with actually spending the time to actually review their evaluations or assignments that they've been assigned to evaluate. Now, my way around that is I go in and I look at the marks across the board, and if there's any deviations, I hone in on the particular criteria, and it's very easy to pick out when students have actually assigned full marks for a criteria that other students have assigned due diligently assigned less than full marks. And so then I go in. So then if students have actually been lazy, for lack of better words, and assigned, or they just don't know what they're actually evaluating, and sometimes that actually happens, but hopefully by the time they're done these assignments, they'll know what they're evaluating. But at the end of the day, if they're lenient with their marks, then they pay for it, because I go in and I override their assignment marks, you know, like their evaluation scores, which it does skew. If they're actually lenient, it does skew the overall mark, because then they're actually perceived as being really good evaluators, and then it makes the evaluators who did their work, it makes their mark plummet. So then you have a bit of but you have to override, and so then I override marks. So it doesn't take away your work by any means. It actually creates more work, I have to say. But at the end of the day, my intent is to actually increase critical thinking, have them be able to look at a particular work and critically appraise it, and using this criteria that I put in place. And then there was, I received some comments about lack of clarity about explanation or comments necessary to receive the full marks or allocate. So I needed to really hone in on that and beef that up. So I do spend time actually going in and saying, hey, this is what you need to do next go around. And I'm usually gentle with the first assignment in terms of reducing marks significantly, but not for the second or third assignment, depending on if these errors are being repeated. Okay. So that's it. And I'm hopeful that I kind of went through it like a Speedy Gonzalez, but I'm hoping it was meaningful. Any questions?